Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about primarily historical fiction 2026 releases. Now in years past, I've never really kept an eye out on releases, haven't really paid attention, but historical fiction is my favorite genre and I love to comment on it. I made one for 2025 and it's one of my more popular videos, so people love to know about what's coming out. My big caveat though in that video and in this one is the majority of these books I probably won't read, and actually a lot of them I have no desire to read, but I want to inform you all about them. It's kind of hard to narrow down historical fiction, what's good, what sounds interesting. A lot of these are from authors that I've read from before, are really popular. Some I just picked because I think the covers are really beautiful. Some of the premises sound interesting, and I would say a handful, maybe 5, I'm actually like stoked on reading and want to get my hands on. Maybe less than 5, I'm not sure. I'm going to talk about mainly around 20 historical fiction releases for 2026 and then like 4 random honorable mentions of other books that I'm going to keep my eye out for and probably will pick up in the new year, but you know, no promises. I know everyone's making 2025 best of lists. The more that I read new releases, the more I realize I don't know if they're for me, but it's always fun to just keep an eye out and a pulse out for what's coming out and what sounds interesting. So please let me know if any of these books that I mentioned today sound interesting to you. Which ones do you plan on reading for sure? Which ones have intrigued you? Yeah, let's get into it. As best as my limited research allowed, I'm going in publication order. I have mainly January through June is kind of what's released, not really the second half of the year. Only I think 2 books coming out in the second half that I just know the authors. Starting off with January, Rules of the Heart by Janice Hadlow. This is the author of the beloved The Other Bennett Sister. And I've only seen a couple reviews for this book and they haven't been the greatest, so I don't know how well it's going to be received. I'm sure some people are going to love it. I love the art cover, very similar to her original book. Other Bennett Sister was a Pride and Prejudice retelling. This one I don't personally have a desire to pick up because it is a beautifully evocative historical novel about the perils of an all-consuming love affair. It's set in England in 1794. This one is about a woman named Henrietta who meets Lord Granville, a rich, handsome man who's 12 years younger than her, and they have a love affair. I personally do not have any desire to read a book about an all-consuming passion, but for those that are super Janice Hadlow fans and love The Other Bennett Sister and want to read more from this author, this one's coming out. Next, solely because of the cover, Eve by B.K. O'Connor comes out in February, and this is a Paradise Lost retelling, and it is about Eve who faces the relentless toil, pain, and resentment of Adam, who blames her for the shattering of paradise, and it's her inner workings and turmoil. Again, this is not biblical Christian fiction, so this might go into a direction that would be really interesting to read. I'm thinking maybe along the lines of Anita Diamond's Red Tent book, which is a biblical fiction, or Suman Kidd's book about if Jesus had a wife, kind of like a spin on something that's biblical. But for those that love to read like a women-centered story with her inner thought life, what would it be like to be inside of Eve's head after everything that happened? Probably not super biblically accurate, but I love the cover and it's intriguing. I don't know if it's going to get any hyper love though. Then in February, a very popular author, I loved one of her books, The Yellow Wife, and Sadiqa Johnson is coming out with her 3rd book, Keeper of Lost Children. I will say this is such a departure from her previous covers. I hate this cover. I think it's so bad. It's a person looking away and it's like, you could tell it's AI. It's just ugly. I don't like the font. I don't like the cover and it makes me sad. So this one is set in World War II Germany, tying 3 people together in an unexpected way. And these 3 people all have different stories and different pasts, and it has to do with an African-American race perspective when it comes to the war and in Germany, which will be interesting. So I'm definitely intrigued by it. I don't know how I feel about the multiple perspectives. And again, the cover is not so great, but I'm sure this one will get some love and I hope it's another great book by the author. Also in February, Kate Quinn is coming out with a new book. She's a very popular, beloved author. I haven't super got along with her writing, but she's coming out with a fantasy. So it's historical fantasy. I definitely will not be reading it because I don't read fantasy. She's written a fantastical adventure that poses the question, have you ever wished you could live inside a book? Part of the new speculative fantasy of like books within books and all that kinds of magical realism that I'm personally not into, but for any of you Kate Quinn fans out there, will you be picking up this fantastical release by her? Kind of intriguing. She's usually just stuck to the historical fiction lane, but this is definitely a pivot. Next, moving into March, we have M.L. Stedman, who I wasn't familiar with the author, but I looked and it was the person that released The Light Between Oceans, a very popular historical fiction. They came out years back. I remember when I just started getting back into reading, it was one of the top ones. It's like always next to, you know, Nightingale and All the Light We Cannot See, and then it's a light across the oceans or whatever. So this author hasn't released something in a long time, but this one is set in Western Australia in 1958, and it has to do with a moment's inattention, a few muddled seconds, and the lives of a family are shattered. So I'm assuming some kind of accident and consequences from that. Sounds interesting. I like the idea of this vast Australian landscape and that being a part of the story. I didn't love Light Between Oceans, but I'm gonna keep my eye out on this one. Next in March, for those of you that love a book about books, this is The Sisters of Book Row by Shelley Noble. This is a story that's set in 1915 in Manhattan's Book Row, which is an eclectic jumble of 40 bookshops along 4th Avenue in New York City. There is a main person called Anthony Comstock that is the solicitor of banning books, and his 3 sisters run this bookshop and create this program to get obscene, lewd, or lascivious publications into the hands of the public. Kind of a family drama, books about books, talks about banned books, historical New York history, which sounds fun. This one I'm intrigued by just to learn about some New York history about books. Also in March, we have another Marie Benedict, and this is The Daughter of Egypt. Same with books that are set in Paris. I'm like not drawn to books that are set in Egypt. Not that I've read any. That's why I didn't read The Stolen Queen. That's why I had no interest in What the River Knows. Like, I don't know, I just don't really care about Egypt for some reason, even though I'd love to travel there one day. But yeah, not really vibing. But this is a story of a woman who helped uncover King Tut's tomb, discovers the mystery behind Egypt's first woman pharaoh. So that's maybe like low on the priority list that I'd get to, but I think it might be really intriguing. Next in March, I've never read from Sandra Dallas before, but I've been recommended quite a few of her books, especially those that love a little historical Western story. I've been meaning to read her because I loved Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon, and I'm always looking for more books like that. This is The Hired Man, and it's set during the Dust Bowl, so 1930s, starts in Colorado. This is about a young woman and her family surviving the Dust Bowl. Her mom insists on taking in a young, handsome drifter boy, and I'm assuming they begin some kind of relationship or romance, so kind of like a Dust Bowl historical romance. We'll see. Okay, the next one coming out in the beginning of May is gonna be huge. I know people are gonna read it. I just saw the cover got released and I think it's beautiful, and that is The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett. This is the author of the very popular book The Help that got turned into a movie, and she has not written a book since. I think that was 2008, so it's been a long time coming. And this is going to be a big-hearted novel about a group of unbreakable women fighting for what's rightfully theirs. 1930s Oxford, Mississippi, during the Prohibition era and the Great Depression. So a group of women, some that are orphaned, coming together, friendship, sisterhood. There's a lot of stories about women these days, which is fun to read about. They're usually always kind of hard-hitting, but this one sounds good. I will definitely be picking it up. Even though The Help I actually read only for the first time this year in 2025, but I really enjoyed it and I loved the movie when it came out forever ago. So I'm excited for this one. Let me know if you are too. Next is one that I will not read because I'm not a fan of Frederick Buckman, and I don't tend to love those heartwarming stories about old people, found family. I don't know why. I should love them, but I for some reason just don't. The ones that I've read, I've rolled my eyes and just cannot get along, and that's definitely a me problem. But I know so many people out there love these books for good reason, because they feel good. It's like reading a warm hug. This is The Unforgettable Mailman by April Howells, and it says this is for fans of Frederick Buckman, a heartwarming story about intergenerational friendship and the power of human connection, and it's set in the 1960s in Chicago. I think the cover is super cute, and I think a lot of people will read this one. I'm talking to you specifically though, Krista, Books and Jams. She loves stories like this, so I'm sure she'll read this one. Another women-centered story is Mrs. Benedict by Emma Perry. This is the April release. This book is all about Peggy Shippen, who is Benedict Arnold's wife. It's a fresh, provocative take on one of the nation's most notorious traitors and the mysterious, misrepresented woman who may have been behind it all. So for those that love a single woman focused story, her history, what happened to her, what may have happened behind the scenes, I like the cover a lot. I think this one will be interesting. Next in May, Jennifer Ryan comes out with a new book. She wrote The Kitchen Front and The Chilbury Ladies Choir, and I liked the choir book a lot more. I read that this last year. She's coming out with a book called The Queen's Coronation, an unforgettable and heartwarming tale about female resilience, friendship, and courage. A lot of her stories kind of have that feel, women coming together, multiple perspectives. This is about Queen Elizabeth II takes the throne. Will these 3 women be able to take their rightful places? So it's about the wardrobe assistant to the Queen's assistant dresser, and an undercover journalist. So their stories coming together, kind of behind the scenes, people who work for the royal family. Might be a good book for those that liked any of Wendy Holden's royal series books. Next, coming out in May, a book from Christina Baker Klein, the author of The Beloved Orphan Train. Really like this cover. Again, any historical fiction that has no people on the cover, I am all for. And I liked the flowers and the vines and the gold creaminess. seems to be a theme, I feel like, for 2026. The Foursome is about a reimagining of an astonishing, true two sisters in 19th century North Carolina who are actually Klein's own distant relatives. They married world-famous conjoined twins from Siam, and their story of love, constraint, identity, reinvention, boundary-defying marriage. Sounds really interesting, like totally different, very interesting interpersonal relationships there between sisters and twins and conjoined in this historical time period in 1839. So I think that will be an interesting one. Another one I chose just because of the cover for the fruit and the bird and the color, and this is Forgotten Midwife, also midwife because I like stories about midwives, by Laura Anthony. Comes out in May. This is a dual timeline story with present day and then 1950s Ireland, and it's based on real historical events, a powerful, poignant novel of feminism and resilience that follows the life of a young woman consigned to work in a home for fallen girls who quickly realizes she must risk everything to protect them. So another book about female-focused stories, feminism, standing up for what's right in a time and place that was hard to do so. For those that love that theme, this one might be interesting. Might have some hard topics though. I don't think I'll personally be reading this one, but again, I like the cover. One I definitely won't be reading because I don't like this author. Maggie O'Farrell, Hamnet, wasn't a fan. This is Land, and it's coming out in June. This is also set in Ireland, set in the summer. That's all I'll tell you, but pick it up if you're a fan of the author. One I will 100% be reading because it is one of my favorite authors, Ruta Sepetys, and it is her adult debut. She always writes middle grade or young adult historical fiction, and she's coming out with an adult fiction called A Fortune of Sand. This one is set in the 1920s. Hence the cover. In Detroit, the story of a daughter of an automotive magnate escapes to an artistic retreat that holds more secrets and more intrigue than she could have ever imagined. This is a Prohibition era novel. So, story of a young woman set during that time period. I've read very little in the 1920s and Prohibition era, so I will definitely be reading it. I already got an advanced copy, so I will be reading the ebook and letting y'all know if it's any good. Hopefully it is. I'm so excited. Two more historicals left, no cover yet, but coming out in September of 2026. Ariel Lawhon is coming out with a new book called The Pirate Queen. Now, I loved her latest release, The Frozen River, one of my all-time favorite books. So many people have loved that. I did not like Codename Helene. I've still yet to read I Was Anastasia, but this book coming out in 2026 is a thrilling historical adventure inspired by the life of Grace O'Malley, an infamous Irish sea captain and folk heroine who risked everything to protect her people against the powerful Elizabethan regime. So a female pirate at sea, but historical fiction. Sounds really fun. I haven't read anything like that at all. I usually don't like novels about the sea, but maybe from Ariel Lawhon, we'll see. I think she always does pretty good historical research, and it's based on real people and the things that they did. So based on a real person, maybe named Grace O'Malley. I am very intrigued to see if I like another one of her books. And finally, Madeline Martin, another very popular, beloved author, no cover yet, is coming up with a historical fiction that has to do with witches. I don't really love to read about that topic, so I probably won't be reading this one. For those that want a little witchy book coming out in the fall of 2026, Two Women, Two Centuries, One Chance to Rewrite History Before They Are Both Erased. It is set in 1645 Suffolk, England, and someone is standing accused of being a witch. So those are all the historical fiction that I'm keeping an eye out for. We'll see how they're perceived. Like I said, a few I'll definitely read, some maybes, and some I definitely won't, but I wanted to let you guys know anyways because I know people want to know. Next, I just have 4 really random books from authors I've read before that I've enjoyed. They're not historical fiction. 2 are thrillers, which I barely read. One's a middle grade graphic novel, and one is a contemporary book, but I'm definitely going to pick it up for a reason and I'll let you know. First one is Gillian McAllister is coming up with a book called Caller Unknown. I really enjoyed the 2 books that I've read from her, Wrong Place, Wrong Time and Famous Last Words. I enjoyed her thriller writing. They're never cross the line for me. They're not too gruesome or too crude or too violent or anything like that. They deal with family drama, which is always really interesting. And this one, again, I don't know if I'll read because I tend to like not read books about stolen children, but maybe. How far would you go to rescue your child? A mother races against the clock and finds herself on the wrong side of the law in desperate fight to save her teenage daughter in this pulse-pounding thriller. Another one I don't know if I'm going to read because I am claustrophobic and I hate being in tight spaces, but Taylor Adams is coming out with a new book called Her Last Breath. It's about like 2 frenemies, like 2 girls that have been friends and they haven't been in a while, and they decide to go cave diving or like cave expedition, and then they like meet this stranger in the cave, some kind of drama where they end up being trapped. It sounds awful for claustrophobic people, like to be trapped in a cave. Absolutely number one, like fear. Never. But Taylor Adams, I've only read No Exit, and that was easily one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It's really intense, heart racing, crazy. So if this is anything like that could be really fun. And if I'm brave enough, I might pick it up. Next, the 4th installment of the Lightfall series comes out, A Place Between. This is Tim Probert's book. I loved The Girl in the Guldurian, the first book in this series, and I read the book 2, and I haven't read book 3, and this is book 4. I would love to probably read this when they're all out. It's just such a sweet, fun story of adventure. This is maybe particular for those that have middle grade age children. They might want to pick this up. I'm sure it'll be very popular in the library when it releases in April. And finally, I will feel like definitely be reading Bumblebee Season by Eileen Garvin. She wrote The Music of Bees, which is one of my favorite contemporary bee novels that I read. Every year I make a vlog dedicated to reading books about bees, and I feel like this year I might include this one. This is a heartwarming new story that returns to the vibrant world of beekeeping in a small Oregon town. Don't read too many books that are set in Oregon because there's just not many of them. I love the cover, I love the bees. I believe that's Mount Hood in the background. Like, I definitely will be reading this book. It's just so sweet, and I love The Music of Bees, so I'll be getting my hands on this one come April. Well, that's all from me, folks, and anticipated releases for 2026. Like I said, please let me know if any of these sound interesting to you, or let me know what your top book is. For those that read maybe genres that I don't, like fantasy or anything, what's one book coming out next year that you're stoked to get your hands on? I would love to know. Put that on my radar. But I know a lot of you read more backlist stuff anyways, and I probably should too, but this is just fun for me to like have commentary on one of my favorite genres. Like I said, probably won't be reading most of them, but it's definitely fun to peruse and speculate. Thanks so much for spending some time today with me, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye.